Welcome back to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here in the Sabre Risk TV studio and broadcast alley at Moscone West, not east, north, or south. I don't think there is an. Is there an east? I don't know. I'm your host, Doug White. Joining me for this interview is Roshan, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Menlo Security. Hi.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
It's great. Yeah, thanks for coming down here. That's really fun. We love having great guests on here. And I was reading all your stuff, and I thought, wow, this is a good conversation, because I have these conversations with my clients all the time. And one of the first things that you had on your sheet was talking about neural nets, which I was immediately like, well, I like that. I mean, I love neural nets. I mean, a lot. Probably too much. like there was this whole restraining order thing, but we got over that. And you were also talking about phishing and ransomware. And I'm just like the scamaholic. So this is stuff I talk about on my shows all the time. And then, because I do the news, and I talk about this stuff every week. I mean, so much, it's almost gotten numb. You know, it was like breaches. You know, originally when I was doing the news, we were like, there was a breach this week. Now It's like, yeah, there was 8,472. And then we just got like, okay, yeah, just assume there were breaches.
Yes, for sure.
And so now we're back to this. So, I mean, you guys are working on neural nets to prevent ransomware and phishing.
That is one of the core areas of our offerings. Yeah, is using not machine learning, but neural networking, the AI, the true AI aspect, to learn, understand, and be able to quickly interpret in real time what's legitimate, what's not, what's high risk for enterprises as they operate.
And so, I mean, I had this philosophy forever that humans are always going to fall for scams. I mean, they always have. I mean, since the dawn of time. I was standing on this pier one time in Haifa in Israel, and there were people trying to sell me fake jewelry and stuff. And I was thinking, you know, these guys conned like Egyptian sailors thousands of years ago, and people are still falling for this today. And phishing doesn't seem to be abating. It's getting worse. AI is making it possible for... I was just in the last session talking about deep fakes and creating phishing on the fly. That's, you know, almost interactive phishing that really sounds appealing. And so, how do we? You're trying to take the human element out?
I think it's fair to say, to your point, that we should continue to educate folks to try to discern what's real and what's not real, what looks suspect, and so on. But people are going to click. That's just a given. They are going to be the weakest link in the chain. And so it's important to have a good preemptive and proactive solutions for phishing, ransomware, and malware. And where the use of AI comes into play is, look, to your point, I think the notion of post-breach detect and respond is proven to have failed. See, you just said, you know, we used to talk about the breach of the week. Now it's how many thousands of breaches have occurred. I read, I believe it was either Gartner or Forrester is saying that in 2024 alone, phishing attacks increased 200%. That's triple what happened in 2023. And 80% of those are 0-hour attacks. So there's no signature in any database that you can use to reference off of for the detection. Right. So there has to be something preventative. There has to be something proactive that's stopping it before you let the burglar get into your house. Right. And that's where AI comes into play. We're rabid believers that well-trained AI can detect a suspected phishing, ransomware, or malware attack before the user's able to interact with it. And that's I think where the real value lies.
Yeah, so let's just say there's like a phishing email is coming in. I can only filter that on a without what you're talking about. I can only filter that on a signature right now. So unless a known phishing letter from a known
That's
IP
right.
from whatever, I can filter that on a hash or what have you. So as that has changed, I can generate a completely unique document from the bit level up for every single phishing email I want to send with AI. So I can just use whatever. So how do you stop that? I mean, what are you looking at with your neural net that reduces that attack surface?
Again, to keep this we're painting with broad brushes here to keep it simple.
No, it's fine, absolutely.
There's three core elements to what we'll do. One is we have a novel approach to the use of AI, which is computer vision, right? That's a very common use for AI detection.
Absolutely.
We will correlate between the logo that's on the page that's popping up, and probably comes as no surprise to you that the #1 fished site is Microsoft 365.
Okay, that makes sense.
So correlating the logo to the URL to the mechanics, the content of what's on the page itself. So Menlo Security as a browser security company is looking at the rendered page, inline, and determining what are the components that are running on the page. So correlating between the components. And again, broad brushes here, but do I see the right kind of login prompts that are there, combined with the URL, combined with that logo? And certainly we would do that against well-known logos, but we can also do it against, let's say, your company, right? If your own company's login page, to make sure that that is in fact an authentic page. And because this is being done inline in the data path, that detection happens in milliseconds. So as the page renders and appears on the user screen, we can block that before they have, or put it in read-only before they have a chance to actually.
That's more sophisticated than I was thinking about. I mean, well, no, it is, because I was thinking, it was my fault. I was thinking more statically, and I really need to be thinking more dynamically, because I think these things could literally get to the point where they're rendering on the fly based on, I don't know, stuff they can siphon out of your browser, and they could render it up just like that.
Absolutely. I mean, the challenge with, if you think about classic security, you've got network security, you have endpoint security, you have the variations of data security and cloud security. Each of them is kind of running in its own, for lack of a better term, a silo. And network security is looking at what's on the wire. Endpoint security is looking at what's interacting with, for lack of a better term, your laptop and OS. But the browser is a very unique and distinct endpoint.
It is.
And if you think about the world that we live in today, what I like to think of as the modern workspace, it's not like 5 years ago where the office was where we went to work, and the office had our server room or data center, and all of those classic infrastructure and endpoint security components were designed to secure what was happening in the office. That's not the world we live in anymore. The office is, let's call it 1/3 of where we work. At home is the other third, and on the road is the other third. And there has to be equivalent fidelity for each of those areas. And applications are now, the preponderance are cloud delivered. I think that's fair to say.
Yep.
And by virtue of that are accessed via the browser. And so the browser is now a legitimate endpoint that has unique security requirements that have to be addressed. So the raw source code that's coming across the wire, network security won't detect what that source code is going to do once it's activated and rendered by the browser. So having a browser security solution that is actively rendering that code on the fly and determining whether there's active content that is suspicious and yanking it out before it renders on the end user's browser is key. Because again, users are going to click. They're going to succumb, and so you want to take that off the table.
Yeah, I mean, basically, so that becomes behavioral, and so that's learning from that behavior too. So it's a constantly evolving threat analytics engine.
Yes,
which I like to hear, because I tend to be old-fashioned and think about static, and I go, oh yeah, I can block that IP. 'Cause I was a network person, and that's not going to help now. I mean, the IP is going to shift every 2 seconds, and it's crazy. Yeah,
one of the biggest misconceptions that we fight against is, enterprises will tell us, oh, I have a SWIG. A SWIG is covering my web security, right? Secure Web Gateway. The name says it all. When in fact, the majority of attacks that are being mounted today are using legacy URL reputation. So attackers are smart. They're birthing and hibernating thousands of valid sites, letting them get categorized. So they'll just blow right by a secure web gateway and render it completely ineffective for all practical purposes. That's why we have those 8,000 breaches a week that you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because I mean, for years we built like Dan's Guardian boxes and stuff, which were very static. I mean, and even they had a dynamic threat intel model where it's like updated daily or whatever, but I just don't think that stuff keeps up anymore, and that non-intelligent kind of model is going to work. I mean, they're just like structured programming, problem solving, like if this, then that.
Right.
But we need to be more proactive than that, and like you said, the users are going to click, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we used to joke, I started my career in networking, and we used to joke that some of these were layer 8 problems, thinking of the OSI model. They are, in fact, the threats are moving higher and higher up the stack. So it is imperative to be able to secure the browser, secure the web, because that is, again, where the preponderance of business is happening. And it's not even limited to web. I mean, if you think about all of our jobs, you here, running this show, me and my job in marketing and product, the one manifest that is true is that our job revolves around data. Whether it's creating content, whether it's consuming content, whether it's interacting with data on a day-to-day basis. We are judged and assessed in our success and failure of our individual contributions, and the contributions of our company are based off of this data. And ensuring that data is secured, that data is secure from any infection coming inbound, but also from exfiltration or leakage outbound. That's the second facet. And if you think about it, what's the most likely way for data to leak out these days?
Your browser. It's
going to be through your browser.
Yeah.
So again, having a solid understanding of what's valid, what's allowed, without, here's my gripe, if I may.
Okay. No, you may.
If I may, about the world of cyber, is that it is so fixated on the security aspect, it loses all sight of the usability aspect.
Well, yeah.
Is fair, right? Like, I want to make sure nothing's leaking out, but I'm going to handcuff the people that actually need to get work done.
And that hurts you bad.
That hurt in a significant way, right? Like, how many times have you pulled your hair out trying to do something because you've been blocked?
More than a few.
So making sure that you're able to actually get work done, but do so in a way that's allows you to not be frustrated, to be productive.
Yeah.
And that applies to administrators as well, security administrators. So making sure that I don't have to create unbelievably static policies that take months, if not years, to roll out, only to be revised again.
Well, I mean, just an example of that. In the early days of the internet, so this is like, I don't know, maybe 2000 or something. I was working for a company, and there was a lot of debate back then about, should we allow this at all? I mean, listen, it happened. But there were literally, CEOs, people saying, look, we don't think our company should be connected to this interweb thing. It's just not a good idea.
Right.
And some said, we're going to test it. And so I built this thing for this one company. And if you went to a website, any website at all, it immediately pops up a screen and it says, you just tried to go to whatever. Please enter an explanation for why you were going to this website and explain to us why this is needed for the performance of your job.
A little draconian.
It was my perfect world. Like the iron fist and the iron glove smashing down in broken glass. It was awesome. But it wasn't well received by the employees, but we got some awesome explanations from people going, I need to go to ESPN to check the mood of my sales clients before I call them. I'm like, right, okay, sure, no. But I mean, this was immediately turned into limiting their job. Now at the time it didn't very much, but very quickly it didn't, right? So this is what you're talking about. And you were calling this browser first. Was this the term that you were using?
Yeah.
It was browser first. And it's become so important that I don't even think we could begin to do that kind of crap now without just creating a really harsh situation.
There are enterprises that still block a large percentage of internet access for that very purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the risk is just perceived to be too high. And I think the reality is, if you rely on, again, those old silos of network security and endpoint security and data security, that is the world that you'll be living in. So if you recognize that the modern workspace is a cloud-first, browser-first world, that AI is a fixture that you have to adapt to and not fight, and again, I've talked to CISO after CISO. Here at this event, we still block access to ChatGPT or Copilot or what have you.
Yeah.
There's hundreds and hundreds of sites, and AI appears in the most innocuous places, right?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
I mean, you don't want it. It's just like,
And agentic is around the corner, and it's going to be not a linear progression, but a multiplicative progression, right? Something logarithmic, and the complexity it's going to add for data leakage. So it's time to start thinking about AI-powered policy creation, ways that allow you to be scalable, and making sure that I can secure data from leaking out, but also ensure that users are able to access the tools that they need. I can tell you that my board looks to me and asks me the degree to which I'm using AI tools as a tool for cost savings, to get leverage, to increase what I can output without needing to add additional resource. And you have that on one shoulder and the don't let data leak out. I have people that are taking product content and putting it on ChatGPT to punch it up, and we have to balance the two, and having common sense policies, both written policy as well as the way our data protection policies in place
I concur.
Makes a ton of sense.
Well, thank you, Pej Roshan, for joining us today. If you want to find out more, please visit all our RSAC 2025 coverage, but you can go to www.menlosecurity.com or securityweekly.com/menlosecurityRSAC. Find out more. Thanks for tuning into this. We'll be back with more interviews all day. Thanks, Pej.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.